Amarillo, Texas. Population approaching 200,000. Founded in 1887 by H.B. Sanborn and his associates, the city's main source for growth was the railroads and the cattle. It became the popular site for a city because of the railroads between Denver and Fort Worth. Despite what many people may think now, Amarillo at one time was lush with creeks and streams, an ideal situation for cattlemen moving their herds north to Chicago. Most of its success was due to Sanborn buying and selling lots to people when the city was first getting started. The city quickly grew into a regional hub for the Texas Panhandle. It was one of the only cities in the Midwest that had a trolley car system on its brick streets. Proclaimed the helium capital of the world, Amarillo was a major source of the gas, as well as meat packing and ranching. By the mid-1950s, when the U.S. highway system was implemented, it spurred Amarillo's growth. This made Amarillo into a significant transportation center for commercial distribution and services. With the addition of the interstate and I-40, Amarillo was the central crossroads of the Panhandle. Its importance stretches into eastern New Mexico and the Oklahoma Panhandle, providing medical and commercial services for the entire region. It has grown rapidly in the last decade. My name is Travis Finelli, and I've lived here for nearly 25 years, and in that span of time, Amarillo has changed drastically. When I was young, I had this immense fascination with Amarillo. I imagined that one day Amarillo would be a massive metropolis with towering skyscrapers and superhighways. Amarillo never got any of that, but it still had something that fascinated me. Its old buildings. I pored over pictures and postcards of Amarillo telling how it got started. There's something about the old buildings of Amarillo that caught my eye. This included churches, courthouses, schools, hotels, and office buildings. I always wondered about them. I would ask, what was the first hotel, the first skyscraper, the first school? What made it attractive for businesses to come to Amarillo? Why did Amarillo grow where other cities in the area did not? These questions I had for many years, and never had any answers for them. Until now.
Well, in order to answer all those questions that I was asking myself as a kid, I had to go to these places, look at these places, see them for real, what they really were. It wasn't enough just to read it in a book, because being in the actual place and seeing it is local history. That's real. And that's why it was interesting for me to study this stuff from something that I had as a fascination as a kid. Some of my favorite buildings growing up is these in particular. There's just something about them. And it led me to ask a couple of questions. What was the tallest building in Amarillo? What was the oldest? Why was it built? And when? These are the type of questions I asked myself when I took on this project.
The Amarillo Hotel was built by H.B. Sanborn, father of Amarillo, in 1889. It was located at 3rd and Polk Streets. The wooden building greeted cattlemen, ranchers, cowboys, and townspeople gathering for dances, card playing, and wedding parties. The wooden structure was moved to 3rd and Van Buren in 1922 to make room for the new brick hotel. It was a magnificent structure that had annexed buildings over the years, but nothing would compare to one of the largest hotels of the oil boom era. That would be Hotel Herring. Built by Colonel C.T. Herring in 1928, it was a 14-story hotel that had 600 rooms and baths. It was home to the famous Old Tascosa Room, where cattle and oil barons gathered to discuss business and unwind. It was the tallest building between Dallas and Denver. But it wasn't the first skyscraper in Amarillo. That distinction belonged to M.D. Oliver Earl Building. Dora Oliver Earl constructed this 10-story office building in 1927 on the southwest corner of 6th Avenue and Polk Street. It is considered to be the first skyscraper in Amarillo and has been known as the Barfield Building since 1947. Amarillo's first $1 million building was the Amarillo Building, located at the corner of 3rd and Polk. It was constructed in 1923. Amarillo's Chamber of Commerce for a long time and is now called Mesa 2. But the new home of the Amarillo Chamber of Commerce is not new at all, and it's actually a mansion. Originally owned by Lee Bivens, a prominent cattleman, mayor, and landlord of Amarillo, the home was constructed in 1905. It was turned into a public library in the 1950s and then the Chamber of Commerce for the city of Amarillo in the early 1980s. It's a beautiful neoclassic home. It has 3 floors and a basement. An additional annex was built on the west wing for more space for the library. Longtime Amarillo resident Lillard Cooper drove past the Landergen Harrington residence at 1600 South Polk one morning in the early 1950s and saw Clark Gable standing in the front yard. Decked out in a cowboy hat he wore often in Western movies, Gable visited the Don Herrings on more than one occasion. One of the few pioneer homes in Amarillo to stand the test of time, it was built in 1913 by cattle barons John and Pat Landergen. It was bought by Don and Sybil Harrington in 1940, and they lived there for 43 years. It has 2.5 stories, covers 15,000 square feet, is complete with an elevator